Smartphones do a lot of work for us, and as apps harnessing artificial intelligence continue to improve, they're becoming indispensable, even lifesavers. Here for more, Eyra Abraham. She is founder of the startup Lisnen, that uses adaptive technology to assist the deaf and hard of hearing. So nice to have you here.
Thank you.
First time here for you, right?
Yes, it is. Thank
Terrific.
you.
Talk to us off the top about the so-called disability market. What is that?
Well, the disability market is a $1 billion population market right now all around the world. And it's a market that is quite, like we like to call it, the size of China. Essentially, there's over $1 trillion of expenses, and it's quite a large market that is obviously untapped by many corporations and organizations around the world.
1 billion people.
1 billion people,
That's more than 10% of the world.
That is pretty much more than 10%, yeah. And it's obviously something that is being neglected in a market that has a lot of potential for businesses. And it's not just the 1 billion people. We also have to think about the population, the families and friends that are associated with people living with a disability.
Okay, if you're talking about more than 10% of the world's population having a disability, make the checklist for us. What kind of disabilities are you referring to?
Right, so there are two different types that we talk about when people living with a disability. There's the visible disability and then the invisible disability. So visible disabilities are the ones that we know, we obviously see somebody on the wheelchair or somebody walking down the street with a cane. But invisible disability is where we're looking at people who have, it's not obvious. So for something could be like myself, who has hard of hearing, is invisible disability, or if somebody has a cognitive impairment, or they have a learning difficulty. So there are many variations of disability, but mostly 70% of them are invisible disabilities.
Obviously yours is an invisible disability because I didn't know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it is.
Okay, here we go. Can I ask you about yours?
Yeah.
You have an invisible disability, meaning you have difficulty hearing?
Yes, I have difficulty hearing. I've had a hearing loss since I was 3 years old. I've been able to go through a lot of training in speech therapy and able to articulate. I rely on lip reading for most of the time. I wear hearing aids. And sometimes if my hearing aids are not, my hair is not exposing my hearing aid, it becomes obvious to some people, but most of the time people won't know by just looking and talking to me at first glance, yeah.
How at age 3 did you begin to lose your hearing?
So it was through an ear infection. When I was a young child, my parents had noticed that I was getting a lot of sort of like a flu, and as a result, that I ended up having a hearing loss. But it wasn't determined until later when they noticed that my pronunciation were different, where I was saying mother clearly, and the next moment it was like mather. It was sort of mumbling words and stuff like that. That was because of me trying to coping and understanding and pretty much lip reading, yeah.
Is it in both ears?
Both ears, yeah.
So what are you, as I'm speaking right now, how much can you hear of what I'm saying?
Well, that's a good question. So if I were to take my hearing aid off, I put it this way, I don't hear a thing. So like fire alarms and sirens, I won't be able to hear that. With the hearing aid, I have a good capability at picking up a lot of the sound. I would say that nowadays with digital hearing aid technology, it made it much easier for me to hear better, and especially when I'm in a loud environment. We have artificial intelligence that have been embedded into hearing aids that help filter sound, so that like I could be in a noisy environment and it can pick a voice in the environment and then focus directly towards that voice. So there's a lot of technology that's able to help me to hear, and tremendous, and it will continue to improve over time, yeah.
So have you actually ever heard your own voice?
Yes, I have. Obviously, I think I hear my own voice, but I don't know if I hear it the same way that you hear it. And I think a lot of it has to do with, when you wear hearing aids, there's an artificial sound. Many people who have hearing loss later on in life, they tend to wear hearing aid for the first time, and they just absolutely can't stand it. It's too much noise. It feels like they're really pixely. It's just not the same type of hearing. And so I would say, well, when I hear that, I assume that I don't hear the same.
Okay, and one more thing. As we're speaking right now, are you reading my lips or are you hearing me?
I'm hearing it, and also reading your lip just to double check that I'm making sure that I got the word correctly. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a backup plan.
Now tell us about Lisnen. You are the founder and CEO of something called Lisnen, Lisnen.
Yeah.
What is that?
So Lisnen is essentially, we're developing a mobile application to help people who are deaf and hard of hearing be aware of sounds around them. So for example, if there's like a fire alarm or even a siren, they will be able to receive notification right from their smartphone with a vibration and flashing alerts. So we're using artificial intelligence to really help bridge that gap between the hearing world and the deaf and hard of hearing community.
That was the first thing I thought of when you told me you were hard of hearing, is that I thought, I don't know if you live in an apartment or a house, but if, let's say someone who's hard of hearing is in an apartment and there's a fire.
Yes.
You're not going to hear that fire alarm.
No, and that is something that happened to me many, many times. That's one of my inspiration for this company, because when I was living in Nova Scotia, there was a fire alarm in my apartment building, and the alarm system, which is in the hallway, is very different from the alarm in your in-unit. And so when the alarm just goes off on the hallway, I didn't have the adaptive device and tool to be able to be aware. And unfortunately, they decided to do a fire drill, and that time they were taking attendance as people were leaving the building. And my name was not checked off because I was busy sleeping, enjoying my good night's sleep. But obviously, when I found out a few days later through the letter from the property management company explaining the situation of fire alarm and the seriousness of it. And I think that really opened my eyes. I was like really shocked at first. And I was like, I got to do something about it. And that's where my business came about.
Okay, so describe exactly what it is.
Yeah, so it's the business itself, it's the application we're developing, it's able for people to use their smartphone. So if you have a regular Android or iOS phone, you have your microphone on the in your phone, and it can listen to the sound in the background. So I like to compare it like the Alexa and Siri. So when you have a fire alarm or a siren, it will actually pick it up using the artificial intelligence algorithm, and it will give you a notification. It says, there's a fire alarm happening right now. And then it gives you a flashing and then your cell phone would vibrate.
Okay, and that's, so presumably if you've got the phone in your pocket or something,
yes,
you pick that up
you can pick it up. And eventually in the future, we'll have like wearables and technologies that we can pair with the phone so that you can leave your phone and it doesn't always have to be on you, but you can have access to information of what's going on around you through different other devices.
Now, Eyra, how far into this Lisnen are you right now?
Yeah, so we're in the very, very early stage. Hopefully next year we're going to be out and launch with our product. I'm looking forward to that day when the moment to be able to share it with the customers in the marketplace who've been very patiently waiting to see, which obviously there's an element of artificial intelligence that we want to get right to ensure that we have the best product out in the marketplace.
How much money do you think you've spent so far getting this thing to where it is?
Ooh, you know what, within the startup stage, I would say it's about over 10 grand. I'm very early stage, like I said. So there's a lot of skill capabilities, investment on people and resources that come in play. But like I said, I have a great community of people helping to get this app up and running. And so that is one of the best advantages to ensure that the cost keeps low and then we can go to market.
Got it. I put up on Facebook, on my Facebook page and my Twitter stream yesterday, a 30-second video of David Lepofsky, who's also on this program. I showed it to you before we started this, of David wearing sunglasses, which have, I guess, artificial intelligence in them, that hook up, he's visually impaired, they hook up to his smartphone, and as he's walking down the street, the sunglasses with the speakers on the side speak to him and tell him the addresses that he's passing and the stores that he's passing. The notion that artificial intelligence is a game changer here, isn't it?
It is totally a, yes.
How so?
You know, it's amazing over the last 3 years, just seeing how people living with a disability can now be able to have an equal level playing field with artificial intelligence. I've seen how people who have epilepsy are now able to receive alert of any seizures 30 minutes in advance. I've seen with artificial intelligence. I've seen how people with vision impairment can use an app as well, or even just other hardware devices to monitor and explore what's going on around them, similar to what David had. And I've seen like people who have learning disabilities who are able to learn the same material that we all want to learn, but in a different way that is more customized to what their particular learning style and needs are. So artificial intelligence has a tremendous opportunity to really lower those barriers in our society, for sure.
And we are going for, obviously, a society that is as barrier-free as possible.
And we are, especially when we have the laws and regulations that are trying to ensure that those barriers are removed. Well, this is a great opportunity for our businesses and also our future entrepreneurs to capitalize and help make sure that those barriers are eliminated. Yeah.
Now, I hope you make millions of bucks off this thing, but I don't know if is the plan here to sort of give it away for free, or do you want to sell it, or what's the idea?
There's a commercial component, obviously. A lot of the companies in the space, especially when you're dealing with accessibility technology, we need to monetize, obviously, to keep our product relevant in the marketplace, and things change and technologies improve. That we certainly want to have those money be invested right back into the business, for sure.
Eyra, in our last minute here, as you look around society, and we talked about this with David and Thea in the program as well, Thea Curdy, who's with a group called Designable, and she's trying to get people, when they design buildings and design cities, to think about the disabled when they do that.
Yeah.
Do you think, generally speaking, we spend enough brain power focused on the needs of disabled people when we develop new products, design cities, etc.?
You know what? I don't think so. I think that is a challenge a lot of companies are not overseeing or even looking at, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. There's an opportunity for companies to have people who have various abilities on the table and part of the product development. And what ends up happening is, especially I know from working in a startup, there's a lot of encouragement that you have to go out in the market really quickly and fast. And we want to test with whoever we can get our hands on who might be a potential customer. But over time, that becomes a problem because you have excluded a number of people who can benefit from that app. And then when it comes to market and they're getting the complaints and the issues from people, whether they have they're living with a disability or not, and then they're trying to go back to really make all those errors, they spent a lot of money and resources trying to fix it just to make sure it's usable to the marketplace. So there's a huge benefit for organizations to get involved with the disability community and get them helping using the product and get feedback from them from the very beginning. And then you can definitely ensure that you got a product that is not just useful for them and people living with a disability, but for everyone. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
We wish you good fortune with this.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It's called Lisnen, Lisnen. Eyra Abraham, its founder and CEO, has been our guest. Thanks, Eyra.
Thank you very much for having me.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.